Who is this made for? I want to convey my experience pointing out the positives, negatives, and thoughts that I had during my time playing thus far. This is coming from the perspective of someone who has heard of Arknights, did not play in any of the playtests for Endfield, and intentionally kept myself blind from the plethora of content created regarding the beta test. I wanted the most blind playthrough possible, and to be honest, I was pretty excited. The graphics of the game itself look very stunning, especially for a Unity project. So we run into launch day, I boot up the game, go through the prologue, and we're here. So let's now break down the combat. SP limits skill usage. Use your basic attacks, you have final strike, the final attack of your basic string, and it returns more SP. Skill usage will build your ult per character, combo skills trigger when its condition is met, so team building comes into play trying to figure out how to best set up each unit for this to happen. You want to fill out this conditional flowchart to have every single unit work together as optimally as possible. You have Arts Affliction, so a typical element type system, where, for example, you have nature plus heat, that'll give you corrosion. It's a song and dance between set play and resource management. There's also a stagger meter, or poise, or break, or whatever you want to call it. If you played Sekiro before, it'll be where they end up in a do this big hit state. There's also interruption, so use a skill while an enemy is charging up certain attacks to interrupt what they're trying to do. There's perfect dodge, which we'll return back to that one in a moment. By introducing two new dynamics to the typical Gacha open world equation, in the form of the removal of cooldowns in exchange for a meter resource-based systems, and having all units on field, which was one of the big selling points that they had, it stands out from Genshin and Wuwa in its own way. And this goes without saying, each game has their own unique appeal and drawbacks. There's no such thing as a perfect game, but for a fact, all three share the base monetization of having a gacha system. They all just want your money at the end of the day by pulling on the new freshest character. More on Endfields later. So, perfect dodge or dodging in general. You ever play those games where you have to pick the object that doesn't belong? I have Nicole, Cantarella, 9, and an apple. Who sticks out here? I still can't put my finger on dodge exactly, but it doesn't fit quite right with the rest of the combat design. And hear me out here. If I were to play Stellar Blade, dodging is a core piece of the combat. Step even further back, Metal Gear Rising, love this game a lot. Dodging and deflecting is a core piece of its combat as well. Returning back to dodging in Endfield, it feels like it's trying to appeal to enjoyers of that flashy combat style, so people like me, whereas the rest of the combat system is doing something else with the thoughtful, albeit slower paced resource management across your team, more akin to a JRPG. I wonder if there could have been a more happy medium here with having maybe an invasion style move that uses SP, but then that'll cause fights to take forever if you're constantly needing to play the waiting game for the meter to refill. And even now as I think about it more, the only thing I can really say is that it feels like they started their roots wanting to be more like a JRPG, but then they realized, hey, if it doesn't look flashy enough, then it's not going to be interesting enough to like hook people in initially. So it feels like there's an issue of combat direction, and it's trying to spin two distinct plates at once. And speaking of mass appeal, that leads us to a nice segue to the next section. So continuing on the golden path, because the game handholds you everywhere because yellow paint or big glowing callouts saying go here are all the rage in video games now, is the guy that puts yellow paint everywhere. But all of this to say, does there really need to be a tutorial on how to use rope? Really? If you're trying to make things more accessible, right? Let's think just tutorial design. You're trying to explain to the player how to use things. If you think they are so inept that they can't figure out how to use a rope, do you think they'll really be patient enough to now read a bunch of text explaining how to use said thing? Keep that idea across every aspect of the game. You go to the factory system, blocks of text. You go even to just do something in a menu, blocks of text, right? There's no organic learning that you can do on your own as a player. It very much wants to try to handhold you as much as possible to try not to get scared of the things that are being introduced to you. There's a certain point where it feels almost restrictive in that regard, where it becomes its own tutorial wall. And it's a shame because that might just be its own filter outright without even trying to be, of just there being way too much hand-holding involved. Since I mentioned the factory system, we should talk about it now. We eventually get introduced to it, and I like it. Is it the best thing ever? Is it going to revolutionize the factory building, automation building genre just like Fortnite did with the battle royales and battle passes and live service and blah 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 blah? No. But it is the key distinguisher from the two other mainstays. So we'll have to see what a live service factory building game looks like, especially with gacha elements added on top, because that is the real game. Arknights Endfield is a automation factory building game. The core motto, and you can probably guess it, the factory must grow. I don't have any concrete examples to pull from and compare against like I did for the combat portion, other than one game, Pal World, but maybe I'll save those comparisons for another time. But you can probably get the gist of open world plus there's factory elements on top. I would say that neither game really tries to go into the factorial levels of automation and level of granularity, but it gives you a general idea of like something that I might reference if we're talking about open world plus factory / automation type thing, because that's not really a genre I have experience in, but I have friends that really enjoy it. Next, let's talk about story. So it's nothing to write home about. It's the typical gacha game curse of trust me bro, it'll get really good after episode 1000. I like the tidbits about the originium causing sickness that has become acceptable for the sake of furthering chances for survival and civilization and all that. There's probably a metaphor somewhere there about the side effects of industrialization on our planet or humanity or something like that. Although the way it was kind of hand-waved away, instead of us, the I don't remember anything MC during this section, you know, we kind of just accept that as a reality instead of being like, well, what do you mean that the things I'm doing might actually be hurting people and all that stuff? It's there, you don't really get any character growth in that regard. And so it made that moment feel a bit more flat than I think it should have been. And for the next part, let's talk about the gacha system, because I feel like if you don't, then I don't know.
And this goes without saying, I care about the game first, the gacha comes second. If a dogshit game has godly rates, no one's gonna play it because it's a terrible game. A great game can have bad rates, and now it's an issue of hyper-aggressive monetization like other free-to-play titles, where you're nickel and dimed at every corner. To reiterate one last time, I care about the game being good first. Rates, pull economy, probabilities. It's not gonna matter if the game itself isn't even worth your time to play, okay? And with that, we can move onward.
I played Endfield Content Bingo before launch. The highest traffic tile was Gacha Explained. I'll sum it up in 2 sentences, save us both a lot of time. If free to play, pull if you have at least 120 to be safe, there is no pity rollover, there's a weapon banner, do whatever you want to do. If you don't believe me, then this video has my stamp of approval because it does the actual number crunching on it. So you're going to get actual, statistical probability and a stats model for it and distributions and all that good stuff, right? I am a little bit biased because, I do like data stuff. I've now saved us all 20 minutes, no flow charts, and we can move on to the actual gacha game design tax. You have the usual gacha game design tropes of a stamina system that acts as a time gate for progression, daily check-ins, the usual works of having chores to do, because how else are you going to be able to log in every day unless the developers make it apparently obvious that, hey, you need to log in to actually move forward and make progress. There wouldn't be a reason to have a stamina system otherwise, other than to just prohibit you from going too far too fast early on. I hope that someday we can do character progression organically via playing the actual game without needing to do the homework or chores of material farming. Now, with all of that being said, do I recommend Arknights Endfield? Should you play it? Let's start with the first part. I think I do recommend it. If you feel inclined to grow your factory, then do that. You don't need to pull on characters to sit back and relax while figuring out your max throughput for your factory. The Gacha Factor won't really get in the way of that experience. There isn't like a banner for pulling factory buildings or something stupid like that. And as for the should you play the game question, I would say, and take this as some advice, right? Form your own opinion, do your research. I mean, there's a reason why you're watching this video, which I very much appreciate. I would like for this to only serve as another data point for you deciding whether to play the game, or if you are playing the game, and give you something to think about. With that being all said, I would say try it for yourself. If you like it, hey, Nice, now you have a new game that you can play. I know I left that on a very philosophical note, but with all of that being said, truly, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for listening, thank you for watching. I hope you have a good one. I do dual stream on Twitch and on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and I hope you have a good one. Now we're really hitting the outro. Oh, okay, so it's like a... what is that? Like a Death Stranding?